We are live.
All right, the meeting of the Committee of the Whole, Planning and Administration is now called to order. I'd ask that you rise as you're able for the reading of the invocation. As we come together today, we recognize the great responsibilities laid upon us. Our council will always strive to understand the needs of the people we serve and to use power wisely and well. Our purpose is to establish and maintain a city of prosperity, righteousness, where freedom prevails and where justice rules. Let us also not forget those who served our community and who are no longer with us, so that we can continue to do the work that we must in their memory. Clerk, has the roll been taken?
Through the chair, roll call's been taken.
Perfect. I'll now call for any declarations of conflict of interest. Councillor McCreary, I do believe you have a conflict to declare on item 7.1.6B.
You, Madam Chair, are absolutely correct. And I will explain the reason for that. We are naming people to the wall of recognition that we recognize on our wall. And one of the proponents is a great uncle of mine. And I don't believe that it's pecuniary in nature, but I do wish to save the city of Brantford the cost of code of conduct investigations that surely would arise should I not declare.
Very fair. Thank you so much. Do any other members of committee have any conflicts to declare? Seeing none. Members of committee, are there any items for consideration or consent you would like to separate for discussion? Noting that we're going to already be separating item 7.1.1 because we have the fire department staffing impact due to the employees who are on presumptive leaves through the Workplace Safety and Insurance Board. That will automatically be separated because there'll be a presentation on that. And then, of course, we'll have Councillor McCreary's conflict separated as well. Councillor.
Yeah, I just wanted to separate 7.1.6, but if that's going to be separated, that's fine.
That's already separated. Anyone else? Councillor Van Tilburg?
7.1.2.
All right, noted. Any others? Councillor McCreary?
Madam Chair, I just wanted to be clear that I will be debating the resolution, but I will not be voting on that name, which is item I.
Correct, it'll be separated. All right, seeing no other calls for separation. Councillor Van Tilburg, can you move the motion to approve all items not separated?
Moved by myself, seconded by my ward mate, Councillor Samwell, that all items for consideration and consent 7.1 and 7.2 not separated for discussion be approved.
Perfect. I'll now call the vote on all items not separated. And Mr. Clerk, if you can read the title.
Through the chair, all the items that are subject to the vote that were not separated are items 7.1.3, Federation of Canadian Municipalities Board of Directors meeting, alternate dates for bid to host, 7.14, Downtown Brantford Priority Plan 2023 update, 7.1.5, updates to the City of Brantford Customer Service Standard and Customer Complaints Handling Policy, and 7.2.1 minutes. All items not separated for discussion purposes carries unanimously and recorded vote of 10-0. Members of the committee voting in favor are as follows: Councillors Sullivan, Celeste, Martin, Carpenter, Van Tilburg, Samwell, Hunt, McCurry, Caputo, and Sakoli.
Very good, thank you. And we do have one presentation this evening. It's Todd Binkley, the fire chief, who will be giving a presentation regarding item 7.1.1, the fire department staffing impact. And just a reminder that prior to hearing the presentation, I want to remind everyone in the meeting today, the following rules of decorum as set forth in the city's procedure bylaw apply. No person shall display any sign, banner, or place card in the meeting room other than materials that, in the opinion of the chair, are legitimate audio visual aids necessary in connection with any presentation to be made with council. All persons present shall use polite and respectful language and shall refrain from the use of any language or the making of any gesture that is disrespectful or offensive. All persons addressing council shall speak only on the subject in debate and shall not speak to any other subject. No person shall applaud participants in debate or engage in conversation or behavior that may disrupt the proceedings of the meeting. So, Mr. Binkley, the floor is yours. You have 10 minutes to present, and that's inclusive of questions from the committee.
Thank you. I'm just waiting for the presentation to come up. Good evening. Through the chair to the mayor and members of council. I'm Fire Chief Todd Binkley, and with me today is Brenda Rutherford, Manager of Human Resources, as well as joining us online is Nadine Dunlop, Manager of Health, Wellness, and Safety, as well as Captain Jacqueline. Captain Jacqueline is the co-chair of the Brantford Fire Department Joint Health and Safety Committee and the WSIB advocate for the Brantford Professional Firefighters, as well as the Occupational Disease Chair for the Ontario Professional Firefighter Association, representing active, retired, and estates before the Workplace Safety and Insurance Board and the Workplace Safety and Insurance Appeals Tribunal. We are here today to discuss the impact of firefighters and communications dispatchers who are on presumptive post-traumatic stress leaves through the Workplace Safety and Insurance Board. Every day, the Brantford Fire Department responds to many emergency incidents that expose firefighters and fire dispatchers to situations that are highly stressful, dangerous, and even traumatic. Exposure to these incidents can increase the risk of the development of occupational mental stress and post-traumatic stress disorder. Various studies indicate that there is between a 7 and 37% prevalence rate of PTSD symptoms amongst firefighters. In 2016, the Ontario government passed the Supporting Ontario's First Responders Act. This legislation amended the Workplace Safety and Insurance Act and the Ministry of Labor Act to support first responders with PTSD or mental stress injuries. Under this legislation, it is presumed that a first responder, including firefighters that are diagnosed by a psychiatrist or psychologist with PTSD, do not need to establish a link to a workplace event. To be eligible, a firefighter must have been employed as a first responder for at least one day on or after April 6, 2014, must be diagnosed with PTSD by a psychologist or psychiatrist on or after April 6, 2014, and no later than 24 months after the day they cease to be employed, and must be diagnosed as described in the DSM-5. Since 2016, 15 firefighters / communication dispatchers in Brantford have been on approved WSIB, PTSD, or mental stress leaves. Of the 15 members, 7 have entered the return to work process to return to their pre-injury positions. The average length of time these individuals are on WSIB leave before returning to work is 594 days. The data indicates that the longer an individual is off on WSIB leave, the potential for return to work decreases. Return to work for leaves 6 months or less is 100%, while leaves 2 years or more decrease to 38%. Despite having a return to work process that has yielded some success, some employees will not return or their return to work will not be successful. 8 members have not returned to work, and the average length of time they have been on leave is over 735 days. How do these leaves affect staffing levels? Fire department staffing is a council set fire protection service level based on the needs and circumstances of the community. The minimum staffing level refers to the minimum amount of fire suppression and communications personnel needed on duty to staff all frontline apparatus and the communication center. In 2016, council approved a minimum staffing of 19 firefighters and 2 communications dispatchers on duty at all time. In 2022, council approved the hiring of 8 additional firefighters to fully staff the area downtown and increased minimum staffing to 21 firefighters on duty. This increased the fire suppression personnel per platoon to 29. The number of personnel assigned to a platoon and available to work a 24-hour day is 31 per day, which is comprised of 29 suppression firefighters and 2 communications operators. 31 personnel per platoon allow the department to meet minimum staffing and account for personnel off on legislative leaves. Legislative leaves are provided for employees by provincial or federal legislation and the collective agreement with the Brantford Professional Firefighters Association. The fire department attempts to manage these leaves appropriately through effective policies to minimize the amount of overtime needed to achieve minimum staffing. The council approved staffing is 116 active fire suppression members and 8 communications dispatchers. However, currently, due to long-term absences, the fire department has 104 active members in suppression and 7 communications dispatchers. This reduces the number of people available per platoon to meet the necessary minimum staffing and is causing the department to call in off-duty personnel on overtime at 1.5 times their regular hourly rate as dictated in the collective agreement. Maintaining minimum staffing due to long-term leaves is the primary driver of increased overtimes for the fire department. In 2022, the total combined overtime hours in suppression and communications division to maintain minimum staffing accounted for 6,901 hours of this overtime. Using an average employee wage at time and 1/2, estimated costs to cover minimum staffing were $519,576. An analysis of overtime from January 1st to July 31st of 2023 indicates that fire department incurred 8,730 hours of overtime due to maintaining minimum staffing. This represents an estimated cost of $668,805. Overtime hours are trending at more than twice the amount of last year, and staff are projecting a significant increase for overtime costs in 2023. As stated, not all overtime due to minimum staffing is directly related to individuals on WSIB approved leaves. However, replacing the individuals on WSIB with probationary firefighters allows the department to cover some of the necessary staffing hours without paying overtime costs. If 7 probationary hires were hired to replace the individual on WSIB leave at the start of this year, the department would have reduced the requirement for minimum staffing overtime from January to July by 5,509 hours. There is a significant cost savings between the average firefighter hourly overtime rate and a probationary firefighter's hourly rate. The cost difference between the probationary firefighters working 5,509 hours versus the average employee hourly overtime rate is a saving of $258,000. If all factors from January to July 2023 remain the same for the entire year, with no employees returning from any legislative leaves, and the department continued to manage minimum staffing through overtime, the estimated overtime hours due to minimum staffing would be 14,966 hours at an estimated cost of almost $1,150,000. However, utilizing straight line projections from January to July 2023 data, the hiring of 7 probationary firefighters would reduce annual overtime from minimum staffing by an estimated 9,444 hours. If the department pays the probationary firefighter rate to work the 9,444 hours instead of the overtime rate, it is an annual cost savings of 442,546. The unpredictable factors that affect daily staffing and drive the requirement for minimum staffing make it very difficult to predict the annual cost benefit. However, as stated, if all factors remained the same and the department used overtime to manage minimum staffing, the estimated cost would be $1,146,545. Hiring 7 probationary firefighters would cost the department just over $615,000. However, this would potentially reduce overtime costs for minimum staffing to just over $423,000. The total cost of hiring probationary firefighters plus the estimated overtime cost is $1,038,095. When compared to the cost of continuing to utilize overtime only to maintain minimum staffing, there is a potential savings of $108,450. Maintaining minimum staffing is an essential part of firefighter and public safety. Hiring probationary firefighters or dispatchers to replace employees on WSIB leaves provide the department with a cost-saving solution to maintain minimum staffing. The purpose is not to increase the number of active firefighters or communicators above the normal complement, but to more closely maintain our active fire suppression and communications force of 116 firefighters and 8 communicators. Additionally, it reduces the need for active firefighters to work excessive amounts of overtime. Working excessive amounts of overtime could lead to operation fatigue and an unhealthy work-life balance for employees, increasing their risk of occupational mental stress. If an employee returns to their pre-injury job and resumes active fire duty, the collective agreement with the BPFFA contains a layup provision that would be utilized to maintain an active suppression force of 116 firefighters. However, the attrition rate within the suppression division, coupled with the increasing amount of people on lengthy WSIB presumptive leaves, indicate is unlikely this clause would need to be invoked. Thank you for your opportunity to present this important issue to council, and we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. And we've exceeded the 10-minute time limit. So unless someone's bringing a motion to extend that, that will conclude the presentation. Thank you so much. All right, so the committee will now consider the items that were separated for discussion purposes. And Councillor Hunt, I do believe you
I
have the
do.
motion.
Moved by myself, seconded by my ward mate, Councillor Carpenter, that all items for consideration, consent items 7.1 and 7.2, separated for discussion purposes, be approved.
Thank you. So we'll start with at item 7.1.1, as we had a presentation on that pertaining to the fire department staffing impact. So any discussion on that? I believe I had Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Chief Benkley, you indicate that there's savings by hiring probationary firefighters, but they'll progress through the ranks and become first class in a matter of 4 years. Will there still be savings with first class firefighters?
Through the chair, there will be savings every year as they progress through the ranks. The probation period is a 5-year period, as well as the WSIB lock-in for employees. So at that 5-year mark.
Okay, and your minimum staffing allows you to maintain 4 on the aerial downtown?
Correct. Our minimum staffing allows us to maintain 4 firefighters on all frontline responding apparatus, including the aerial downtown.
Do you still have an elevating device in Hall 3?
Through the chair, we do have an elevating device, 75-foot aerial is that.
How many is that staffed with?
Is staffed with 4 as well.
Oh, there's 4 on that as well. Okay. A lot of departments will reduce the staffing on the aerials by 1 or 2 before utilizing overtime. Is that something that you considered?
Through the chair, there are other departments out there that utilize different staffing models with their aerial, including what you have suggested. When we presented to council to staff the aerial, one of the big things was to, one, meet NFPA 1710, which allows us to respond to a single family 2-story structure with 17 firefighters and maintain one resource in the city to go to medicals. By reducing the staffing on the aerial below 4, we'll only be able to respond to medicals, and we will have to respond with all 4 stations to meet that 1710 requirement.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Councillor Martin. I have Councillor Sless.
Thank you and welcome, folks. Assuming that we hire the 7 new folks in the 24 budget, will you need additional on top of that full-time people, firefighters?
Through the chair, so the report really is to hire for individuals that are off on WSIB exceeding 6 months. So currently we're at actually 6. The number 7 was a derivative of what the climate looked like at the start of between January and July. So moving forward, we're not looking for additional firefighters, but we would hire when an individual reaches that 6 month.
Right.
And there's indications that they won't be returning to work within the significant time frame.
Okay. And then secondly, if I could, Madam Chair, there are an awful lot of high-rise apartment buildings in the hopper coming through that will be built in the next 2-3 years. Is that going to change your staffing levels to be able to deal with that?
Through the chair, as the city grows, both in height and in population, I think the fire department will be looking to bring reports to council to change our staffing levels to meet the needs of the community.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. And seeing no further discussion, clerk will call the vote. Oh, okay. Put a pin in that. Councillor Martin, you have an amendment.
Yes, thank you. My amendment would read that clause C be added to reduce the minimum staffing to 19 firefighters. Seeking
And
a
it's
seconder.
seconded by seeking a seconder. Councillor McCreary
Thank you,
has
Councillor
seconded.
McCreary. Yeah, and speaking to this, a lot of departments will reduce the staffing on their aerials as needed before calling in people on overtime. And by reducing the minimum staffing by 2, that'll allow us to maintain at least 3 firefighters on each aerial or elevating device, because one's a snorkel. And it's still possible to run a medical call with 3. It's not ideal, but it is possible. The driver would have to go in. And the NFPA is a recommended standard. It's not something that's ironclad. So if we show up with 16 instead of 17, the roof isn't going to collapse because of that. So I think it's something that will save us overtime in the long run without the expense of hiring firefighters to replace individuals that are off because of PTSD.
Thank you. You're good?
Yep.
Okay, so speaking to the amendment, I have Councillor Sless.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I can't support the amendment. I think a lot of thought and a lot of delving into was done when we set the staffing numbers back when we set them. And if anything, we're a much bigger city now than we were then. We will continue to become an even bigger city as we move forward. So I think, well, it sounds appealing and it's always nice to save money and I'm all for that. But I probably put a higher priority on saving people and saving material things. So I know it's well intended. It's done in the spirit of doing the right thing, but in this case, I think it's a little misguided and I won't be supporting it, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councillor McCreary.
Madam Chair, thank you very much. I did second the amendment for my ward mate to permit the discussion. It's a worthwhile discussion, but I have to agree with my learned friend to my right. I won't be supporting it, even though I did second it for the debate.
Thank you so much. Councillor Carpenter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I won't be supporting the amendment as well. I won't support increasing the risk and having less firefighters on vehicles for the safety of our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Davis.
Yeah, I'd like to have Chief Binkley's comment on the amendment.
Through the chair, in 2022 at the Estimates Committee, we brought forward a report that highlighted the benefits of having 4 people on the aerial, particularly one to meet that NFPA standard, allow us to have 2 full response vehicles in the busiest district in the city. It allows us to run multiple calls. So I think it was supported then by council, and I still believe in why I brought those reasons forward at that time.
So if we approve this, we're then limiting the flexibility and adaptability of the fire department to respond to multiple crises.
Through the chair, that's correct. We would, the aerial would only be able to respond to medical calls. It wouldn't be able to go to a second, and we would have to use all 4 vehicles to meet NFPA 1710, or all 4 stations, and would not be able to respond to a secondary alarm.
Okay, seeing no further discussion to the amendment that we reduce the minimum staffing for the fire department to 19. We'll call the vote on the amendment, please.
The amendment fails on recorded vote of 10-1. Members of council vote in favor, Councillor Martin. Members opposed, Councillors Sullivan, Celeste, Carpenter, Van Tilburg, Samuel, Hunt, McCreary, Caputo, Sokoli, and Mayor Davis.
Okay, so the amendment has failed. Any discussion on the motion as it was written? Seeing none, we'll call the vote.
Item 7.1.1 carries unanimously on recorded votes. Members of the committee voting in favor are as follows: Councillors Van Tilburg, Samuel, Carpenter, Hunt, Martin, McCreary, Celeste, Caputo, Sullivan, Sokoli, and Mayor Davis.
Thank you so much, Mr. Clerk. The next item is 7.1.2, and Councillor Van Tilburg, I believe you wanted that separated.
I did indeed. I have some questions for staff. The properties mentioned are 28 to 30 Marlborough with regards to the fire, and the buildings have been torn down to my knowledge. 150 to 156 is the open parking lot, but 11 Gray, 187 to 203 Market, 168 George Street, 168.5 George Street are 4, I believe there's 4 buildings to be demolished. Is that correct?
Through the chair, Patrick Busser, planner, long range planning.
Oh.
There are 3 structures remaining that are proposed for demolition in these applications.
Sir, way to get your volume up, please, sir.
Apologies. Is this better, Councillor?
A wee bit.
All right, I'll try this. So yes,
Thank
there are only 3. The one building is a semi-detached, so it's 1 structure, 2 lots. There's mixed use at Gray, and there's the Alex.
So non-routine. It's a non-routine demolition versus a routine demolition. A routine demolition is when there is a known plan of action to occur through site planning and that. Is that somewhat correct?
Through the chair, that's correct. Conditional site plan approval. So they've gone through the site plan process, shown us enough detail that we're confident they're going to implement their proposal.
Okay, and non-routine, what does that exactly mean so the public can understand?
Through the chair, anytime it is not routine, it's considered non-routine. So if it's early, it's non-routine.
What's the reason for that? What's the reason having the non-routine? Why must we have a routine demolition versus a non-routine? Like most non-routine is not that common. So we do a routine demolition. What is the purpose of having us go through the routine demolition?
Through the chair to the councillor, routine demolitions are handled by staff through delegated authority, and non-routine come to council for a decision.
And isn't the intent though to somewhat protect housing stock? Is that not the reason that we have the discussion?
Through the chair, generally, yes.
Okay. I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page here. So my problem is that if we're trying to maintain housing stock and we're allowing developers to buy up a significant portion of housing stock, displace the individuals for many, many, many years before we get anywhere as close to a build, before we even get the site plan. And what happens is that we all know an empty building is more subject to vandalism and fire, as we saw on the George Street the Marlborough Street properties. This happens over and over and over again. So my question to you is, do we really need the differentiation between the demolitions, or should we actually come up with a way that tenants can remain in those properties and not be evicted when you know that there is many years ahead of them that they could reside there, and we would have both tenancies and no vandalism and fires?
Through the chair to the councillor, the city does not have a tool to compel a landlord to keep a unit tenanted. We can ensure property safety. We can use this tool to prevent premature demolition, but there's no tool to actually force a property owner to keep a tenant in a unit.
You do see the irony that we have right now in protecting housing stock until time of demolition. And yet if they go to the eviction purpose, we end up with fires. And I think in the last couple of years, we've seen a real significant trend in unoccupied buildings catching fire or being occupied by individuals that should not be there and trespassing. I just, there is no one living in these buildings. They were removed many, many years ago. For those that don't know, the one building is the old Alexander's, and I believe that there was something like 23 boarding units there. So the 23 people that boarded were removed. The other properties were fairly significant, probably having another 10 families between them all. That's a lot of people that we displace. And then we had to deal with, and I tell you, I was warned, and residents nearby on Marlborough Street warned that the very thing that happened would happen, and it did happen.
Please wrap it up. You're exceeded your time.
Well,
limit
thank
here.
you very much. I think I've made the point here, and we'll move from there.
Thank you so much. Councillor Carpenter, I have you up next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You're doing a fine job. I'm very much in support of this demolition permit and these demolition of these buildings. This particular block has been in development proposal for a long time, as my learned colleague had mentioned. I'm happy to see them move forward and taking these buildings down and build the high rise, the units that are hundreds of units that will be on that property, as opposed to the few that were there. We're going to end up a lot more units down in our downtown core, certainly very close to the train station, and it be an anchor to our downtown core. This is going to be long-term, going to be a wonderful development for the downtown. It's going to be part of a catalyst to move downtown forward as well in residential development. So I'm happy to support this going forward. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. And seeing no further speakers, we'll call the vote. Councillor Van Tilburg, second.
And thank you. I'm also in favor of the demolition. And I'm in favor of the demolition because the buildings are unoccupied and can be subject to more fires within the neighborhood. So having these buildings demolished now, after the fact, they would be just as good if they had had residents in them. When we talk about the buildings coming forward, the reason that this is called a non-routine demolition is because none of that is actually in the immediate horizon. It's not there. There are no plans yet. There's lots of talk. It will come, I'm sure it will, but I don't know how long. It could be another 3 years or another 4 years. That would have probably been about 7 or 8 more years tenants could have stayed in those buildings. Probably about 40 people. So with that, I think we'll move to the vote. I just want to make it clear because we're going to keep running into this over and over again, particularly in the old ward. And I will continue to bring it forward that we have to find an alternative to having people evicted because we want to develop but we don't get the developments done for years.
Thank you. Councillor McCreary.
Sure, thank you. And through you to staff, I believe I understand non-routine and routine, one having the word non in front of it, the other not having non in front of it. Is there any reason why we would want to think about maintaining the buildings on this site? There's no heritage designation. They're not listed. Is that correct, Patrick?
Through the counselor, that is correct.
And as Councillor Van Tilburg has indicated, there are no residents, nor have there been for some time in any of these buildings, nor would the owner be of a mind to probably renovate and restore residency. But you'd say that's correct as well?
Through the chair, that is correct.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And seeing no further speakers, we'll call the vote on item 7.1.2.
Item 7.1.2 carries unanimously on recorded votes. Members of the committee voting in favor are as follows: Councillors Sullivan, Celeste, Marn, Carpenter, Van Tilburg, Samuel, Hunt, McCurry, Caputo, Sokoli, and Mayor Davis.
Thank you so much. Now we're going to move forward to item 7.1.6. And I think what we'll do, given that we have a conflict with B1, that we're going to separate the vote. So we will discuss items A and C, and we'll vote on that. And then we'll handle B separately so that Councillor McCurry can excuse himself from the one item. So is there any discussion on A or C within this resolution? Councillor Caputo, I believe you wanted this separated. There you go.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to bring forth the fact that it was absolutely a pleasure to see that John Nutley's name was on this list here tonight. Not only was John an absolutely phenomenal counselor for the city of Brantford, but he's so involved in the community currently, from his past to his present. He's president-elect for Rotary. He's on the BIA and is still so very actively involved in the community that he absolutely loves. And it was just something I just wanted to shout out to John Utley, that he has been thought of for this, and kudos, and my mentor. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Any other discussion on items A or C? Seeing none, I'll just add my 2 cents because former Councillor Utley is a little bit of an inspiration to me, and I think we'd be hard pressed to find someone more deserving to fill this seat or to be inducted into the Wall of Recognition. So I'm really pleased to be supporting this. So I'm seeing no further speakers. Mr. Clerk, we'll call the vote on items A and C, please.
Items A and C carries unanimously on recorded votes. Members of the committee voting in favor are as follows: Councillors Van Tilburg, Samuel, Carpenter, Hunt, Martin, McCreary, Celeste, Caputo, Sullivan, Sokoli, Mayor Davis.
Okay, now where item B is concerned, we will call the vote or discussion on item B1, noting Councillor McCreary's conflict. Any discussion on this item in particular or this individual? Seeing none, we'll call the vote on item B.I.
Through the chair, just bear with me, we seem to have some technical difficulties right now. Okay, if you'd like to try again. Clause B.I. carries unanimously on recording vote, noting Councillor McCreary's conflict of interest. Members of the committee voting in favor are as follows: Councillors Van Tilburg, Samuel, Carpenter, Hunt, Marn, Celeste, Caputo, Sullivan, Sokoli, and Mayor Davis.
Thank you so much. Now we will call the vote on items 2, 3, and 4. Those individuals.
And the remaining items in clause B carries unanimously on a recorded vote of 11-0. Members of the committee voting in favor as follows: Councillors Sullivan, Martin, Carpenter, Van Toborg, Samwell, Hunt, McCurry, Caputo, Sokoli, and Mayor Davis.
Very good. Thank you so much. That concludes our separated items. There's no resolutions on tonight's agenda. We do have a few notice of motions. If I don't see anybody opposed, I'll just read out the title of my own notice of motion without changing chairs. So I have recognizing Brantford-born Phil Hartman. And then we have Councillor Martin. You have a notice of motion, and I understand a motion to waive the rules to introduce the resolution tonight.
Yes, thank you. I move seconded by Councillor McCurry that sections 1511.5 and 1511.6 of chapter 15 of the Brantford Municipal Code be waived in order to introduce the following resolution without prior notice of motion and to deem the item urgent in order to be considered outside the budget process. Whereas Megan Meyer's birthday party and networking event will take place in the city of Brantford on Saturday, November 4th at the Brant Masonic Lodge at 117 Charing Cross Street, Brantford. And whereas the event will be advertised to the public and is being held in an effort to celebrate life and promote a networking opportunity for the community. And whereas the event is intended to inform the community of Megan Meyer's expertise in balloon decor for parties, weddings, baby showers, and more. Whereas the event organizer has applied for a special occasion permit, public permit through the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario. And whereas a request was received by the city of Brantford to support an application for the purpose of obtaining a special occasion permit public for the event. And whereas a special occasion permit public requires the event be deemed municipally significant. Now therefore be it resolved that the city of Brantford declare Megan Meyer's birthday party and networking event as a municipally significant event in order for the organization to obtain a liquor license through the AGCO. And just speaking to this, because the date of the event is November 4th, if we don't deal with this tonight, then it won't be done in time for the event to receive its liquor license.
Thank you so much. And just a reminder to committee, this requires a 2/3 vote. Is there any discussion on the waiving of the rules? Councillor Carpenter.
So if we're waiving the rules, and we're passing this early, will it have any impact on the community that gets to comment on liquor licensing application approvals? The public will still at the same time?
That sounds like a question for someone who makes more money than me. Any?
Through the chair, Chris Coach, I'm not too sure about that, but city clerk, so basically when we're deeming municipal events municipally significant, we're going outside of the process by which the municipality does for special occasion permits. And so this is one of the requirements for the AGCO because it does not meet our criteria. Once council, if they pass this resolution, then the applicant will send this directly to the AGCO and AGCO will do their own due diligence process.
Any other comments or questions regarding the waiving of the rules? Seeing none, we'll call the vote.
The motion to waive the rules carries unanimously with the required 2/3 vote. Members of the committee voting in favor as follows: Councillor Sullivan, Martin, Carpenter, Van Toborg, Samwell, Hunt, McCreary, Caputo, Sokoli, and Mayor Davis.
There you have it, Councillor Martin. I won't make you read the whole thing again, but if you could just read the title and state your seconder.
Yeah, I move seconded by Councillor McCurry. 9.2 resolution of municipal significance, birthday party and networking event.
Very good. Any discussion on this resolution? Of course, Councillor Carpenter.
Thank you. So is this a special birthday? Is this like someone's 100th birthday? Is this just or is this just a party? And we say network, is it networking to show off the business? They're gonna have some alcohol there to show off the business and promote the business. Is it a business promotion? Is it someone's actual birthday? What exactly are we looking at here? I'm not sure. Thank you.
Well, of course, we can't have cross-table discussion, but should the mover just decide he wants to speak again? And I see his hand up. Go ahead, Councillor Martin.
Thank you. This individual is new to Brantford, so this is a way for her to introduce herself and her business. to the Brantford community. It is going to be on her birthday or near her birthday. So it is pretty much everything that Councilor Carpenter asked about. And because she's new to the city, she wasn't aware that liquor license was required for this location. I had a discussion with her. If she's going to do this in the future, I suggested that she look at service clubs that are already licensed, so she doesn't have to go through this kind of process in the future. So this is a one-off because she's new to Brantford. Hopefully it's a successful event. And given the location where it is, I don't see it being a problem for neighbors, because I'm sure this location has had one-off liquor licenses in the past and probably will again in the future.
And seeing no further discussion on this item, we'll call the vote.
Item 9.2 carries unanimously on recorded votes. Members of the committee voting in favor are as follows: Councilors Sullivan, Celeste, Marn, Carpenter, Van Tilburg, Samuel, Hunt, McCreary, Caputo, Sokoli, and Mayor Davis.
And there must be something in the water in Ward 3, because I have Councillor McCreary here looking to introduce a motion to waive the rules to bring forward another resolution.
The water always sparkles in the third.
I bet it
ward,
does.
Madam Chair. I'm the mover. Mayor Davis is the seconder. And you want me to read the entirety of the resolution, Madam Chair?
Well, you're reading it now or later, you choose.
I'll read it after the waiver, if that's okay.
Fair.
The sections 1511.5 and 1511.6 of Chapter 15 of the City of Brantford Municipal Code be waived in order to introduce the following resolution without prior notice of motion and to deem the item urgent in order to be considered outside the budget process.
And a reminder that this requires a 2/3 vote. Any discussion to waive the rules? Seeing none, we'll call the vote.
The motion to waive the rules carries unanimously on a recorded vote. Members of the committee voting in favor are as follows: Councilors Sullivan, Celeste, Marn, Carpenter, Van Tilburg, Samuel, Hunt, McCreary, Caputo, Sokoli, and Mayor Davis.
And Councillor McCreary, you have the floor. Stating your seconder, you can read the entire resolution.
Madam Chair, thank you again, seconded by the mayor, Kevin Davis. I'll read the resolution as follows. Whereas the nation of Israel has been the subject of cowardly terrorist actions on a scale unseen since 9/11, and whereas thousands of Israelis and citizens of other countries, including Canada, have been victimized by this cowardly terrorist assault, and whereas 900 victims are confirmed dead, including Montrealer Alexandre Locke, 2,000 victims are wounded, and more than 100 are believed to have been abducted into Gaza. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Corporation of the City of Brantford offers its condolences to the victims of this cowardly terrorist action on both sides of that border, and B, that the Corporation of the City of Brantford condemns the actions of these cowardly terrorists and their state and non-state sponsors. And C, that the Corporation of the City of Brantford condemns the actions of Canadian residents who publicly celebrated the cowardly terrorist attacks on the state of Israel. And D, that the Corporation of the City of Brantford requests that the Government of Canada should consider financial aid to the nation of Israel to replenish depleted stocks of defensive anti-missile systems. E, the Corporation of the City of Brantford urges the return of Israelis held hostage in Gaza. And F, that as a display of solidarity with the nation of Israel, Brantford City Hall be illuminated with the colors of the Israeli flag until the cessation of hostilities. Madam Chair, speaking to this, it's a tragedy for both sides of that border and that troubled land, but there can be no equivocation. Just as we debated the intimate partner violence resolution below these many days ago, there can be no excuse. In a debate, there can be no howevers, there can be no buts. It's a horrendous act and it has caused much death, and the retaliation will cause much more death. And we are to condemn this, and there can be no excuses. But as I said, it's a troubled land, and this is the latest manifestation of what we, here in Canada, we tend to use the word hate for little things. This truly is hate, and it's caused death and suffering, and that will just continue. And I think it's important that we in the city of Brantford recognize that we have residents who can trace their lineages back to both of those regions. And it's to the credit of those folks here that there have been no displays such as we've seen in Montreal and Toronto. which have celebrated the deaths of thousands of people on both sides of that border. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much for bringing that forward. I have Counselor Martin.
Yes, the only problem I see with this is in clause E where it talks about the return of Israeli held hostages. I think that should read all held hostages because there are other nationalities that were taken hostage. I believe there were some Canadians that were taken hostage by Hamas, and I'd like to see them released as well. I see the mover shaking his head, so I think that's a friendly amendment. If the seconder will agree.
Any objections from committee on the friendly amendment? Seeing none, that's friendly.
Thank you.
That's everything. Any other discussion? Counselor Van Tilburg?
I'll be supporting most of this, but I'd like to have the item, let's see, which is that there?
I've called for all of them to be separated if that
Oh,
helps.
you did? I
Yeah, I
missed that. I apologize,
No.
Chair.
You're welcome.
So is it hate related? Absolutely. It's 55 years of occupation. You're gonna generate hate. My concern is how long is the city hall going to be illuminated? Another to the end, like if it's been ongoing for 55 years. I don't see an end in sight anytime soon. The issue of the financial aid from Canada, I think generally we've always been a two-state solution neutral player with regards to the conflict. I would rather see us provide some sort of aid other than military. I believe we know that the United States provides $3.8 billion of military aid to Israel every single year. That's in their yearly budget. That's a significant military aid. I'm sure the United States is happy to replenish that as they always do, but there's the other side, the humanitarian side. There's a whole bunch of things that Canada can do and has done in the past. If Israel wishes us to be there, I'm sure that we could be there in a way to help. So that might be the only aspect, just because I believe we can deliver better on better things for there. And until there is a desire, and there is not, but until there is a desire for a two-state solution, the occupation will continue and the violence will continue. And we will go through this over and over again, with it flaring out into the higher levels as we've just seen this past week. And it's a tragedy for all. It's a tragedy for those that were killed and attacked, and then those that were killed again in retaliation. But that will never bring an end to it. More military aid. Unfortunately, I think we've got plenty of history to support that.
Thank you so much. Counselor Carpenter?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is one of the worst attacks on Israel in 50 years. This has been compared to America's 9/11. This is a tragedy. What's happened here? It wasn't just the fact that two sides are disagreeing. It's the side that broke through, and as terrorists, they're terrorists. They're not a group representing people. They're terrorists. And they broke through the lines and they slaughtered women and children. They cut babies' heads off, for crying out loud. These people are disgusting and they're terrorists. So, and they happen to be running Gaza. That's unfortunate. Instead of having, and I could have kind of looked like something was going to happen here, because United States, President Biden was brokering a deal with Saudi Arabia to recognize Israel. And for Israel, as a part of that, to look at the two-state solution, to find a solution. I think they were getting close to a solution here. And of course, the deal was for the United States that the oil would be priced in American dollars, protecting the United States' long overdue debt and protecting Canada as well. I mean, it was a very good solution. But there's countries that are involved here outside of Israel and outside of Palestinians that have been playing with the lives of everyone. And we all know who they are. And this war could spill over into much more. I'm not concerned if we leave the colors up as long as the war is on, until this has been settled. And we have the Ukrainian flag flying, and we're going to keep it flying too until we see an end to that war as well. These people, as the Prime Minister said earlier today, they're terrorists. They're not freedom fighters. They're terrorists and they want to terrorize Israel and any part of the Jewish population. And because they were getting close to some resolution in the Mideast, and there was some recognition of Saudi Arabia of Israel, I think there was those that are opposed to that got involved here, and a lot of people got hurt. And this is a sad day. I'm happy to support this resolution, this tragedy. Any kind of hate, any kind of terrorist attacks like this must be condemned wholeheartedly. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mayor Davis?
Yeah, just on a technical matter, the last paragraph, I'm not sure we have the ability yet to light City Hall. I mean, I realize it's a minor issue in the greater context. We'll find out, but I don't have an answer. I know staff had confirmed to me that we'd have it by October 19th for the disability display that was confirmed last week. So I'm not sure we physically can do that right now, but that aside, I wanted to say that as mayor of the city, I strongly condemn what you have to honestly describe as just being brutal terrorist attacks perpetrated by Hamas targeting innocent civilians. And certainly I extend my condolences to all of the innocent civilians, regardless whether they live in Palestine or they live in Israel, whose lives have and will be lost by the senseless violence that is arising out of this terrorist attack and its aftermath. I think, it's right to condemn acts that clearly are brutal and savage. We stand by Israel, or at least I stand by Israel, and its right to defend itself and its citizens. And also tragic to my mind is that the long-term implications of this clearly are to basically eviscerate any possibility of a peaceful resolution in the Middle East, and that truly is tragic. And so I can support the resolution, although I do have some concerns about the lighting and do have some concerns about the nature of the financial aid that this resolution requests the government of Canada provide. It may be that we don't have the ability to provide defensive anti-missile systems, and there may be more appropriate forms of financial aid. But given the nature of the situation, how it's developed so quickly, and I think the importance that our council speak as to what our position is in regards to this matter, I'm prepared to support it. Just as long as council understands we may not be able to light City Hall within the next day or two.
Thank you so much. Councillor Sullivan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. In light of this information about the lighting, I would like to introduce an amendment to F, that if we can't light the building, that we put the Israeli flag at half mast.
Do you have a seconder for that?
It's considered friendly.
It's friendly. All right. Councillor Martin, did you want to speak?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. Even though the amendment was friendly, I don't think it's needed because the lighting of the building wouldn't happen until this is ratified at council. And we've heard that the lighting system will be available by then, so.
Is that accurate that it wouldn't? It would be tonight?
It'll be ready by then and it'll be ready in the next 2 days.
Okay, so this would have to be ratified by council before any lighting occurred, so we have some time, and I would encourage you to maybe, well, it's a friendly amendment, it already passed, it's already friendly, right? Okay. All right, any other speakers? Councillor McCreary?
If everyone else has spoken, Madam Chair, I'll wrap.
I will be speaking.
Oh, wait.
Do you want me to speak first? Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to comment to this and say how tragic it is anytime an innocent life is taken in an act of war like this. And I just want the people of Brantford to understand that Hamas is not, they're a terrorist group. They are not, and they should not be a reflection of the beautiful Palestinian people and our Palestinian community that we have here, and the Palestinian community that is trapped in Gaza right now. So, this conflict, if you really look into it, this is deep. It dates back to the 1400s. It's incredibly polarizing, and I'd also like to lend my sympathies to the Palestinian refugees, over 7 million of them that have been displaced since 1947, because they're victims in this conflict in this area as well, in the Israel-occupied Palestinian lands. This is a religious war, whether you want to believe it or not. It's not a justification, but it's a big part of what's going on in Israel. So because it's a religious war, I don't know if there's anyone here from legal who can comment to whether or not we can display a flag. I realize it's a country at war, but it's still a religious undertone to the basis of this war. And I just want to make sure we're not violating any of our own policies in that.
I believe that we can put together an opinion before this comes to council that can address that question.
That would be great. Thank you so much. So Councillor McCreary, I do believe you want to wrap on this.
It'll take me a moment to recover. I'm somewhat speechless. This isn't about a history lesson. It's about a group of mutts that have murdered upwards of 1,000 people in cold blood, slaughtered them, cut their heads off, tortured pets, forced people to beg for their lives, and then execute them in cold blood. That's not religious. That's murder. That's cold-blooded, disgusting murder. And to categorize it as anything else, I won't go any farther because I've already avoided one code of conduct tonight, rather. But I'm taken a bit aback, and I'm also taken a bit aback that members of this committee would want to separate this question clause by clause by clause by clause by clause by clause to, I don't know what the point would be. I would think if there's something in here that you find upsetting or troubling, that you have the courage just to vote against the whole thing. Don't separate them. Vote against the whole thing. Show the courage that these terrorists that killed all these folks failed to show.
And on that note, we'll call the vote. Correct, we'll separate it.
So the vote right now is for clause A. Clause A carries unanimously on a recorded vote of 11-1. All members of council voted in favor. Councillors Sullivan, Celeste, Martin, Carpenter, Van Tilburg, Samuel, Hunt, McCrary, Caputo, Sokoli, Mayor Davis. Up next, we have clause B. Clause B carries unanimously on a recorded vote of 11-0. All members of the committee voting in favor. Next is clause C. Clause C is carried on a recorded vote of 11-0. All members of the committee voting in favor. Next is clause D. Clause D carries on a recorded vote of 8-3. Members of the committee voting in favor are as follows: Councillors Sullivan, Sless, Martin, Carpenter, Samwell, Hunt, McCreary, Caputo. Members opposed, Councillors Van Tilburg, Sokoli, and Mayor Davis. Next, we have clause E. Clause E carries unanimously on a recorded vote of 11-0. All members of the committee voting in favor. Next, we'll go to clause F. Clause F carries on a recorded vote of 10-1. Members of the committee voting in favor are as follows: Councillors Sullivan, Celeste, Martin, Carpenter, Van Tilburg, Samwell, Hunt, McCreary, Caputo, Mayor Davis. Members opposed, Councillor Sokoli.
This meeting is now adjourned.